In the far reaches of the Orion Arm, the Galactic Council maintained a peculiar monument, a graveyard of species. Not merely a memorial, but a true cemetery where the last remains of extinct civilizations were interred. Most fascinating to visitors was that despite the diverse origins of these fallen races, every marker bore the same inscription: human. Admiral Voss of the Terran fleet scrutinized the holographic display, showing the rapidly approaching alien armada. This would be humanity's first major interstellar conflict, and the stakes couldn't be higher. "They've refused all communication attempts," reported Communications Officer Reed. 27 ships, all heavily armed. Voss nodded grimly. Earth had only recently mastered faster-than-light travel, joining the galactic community just 15 years ago. Unlike most species who spent centuries advancing gradually, humans had catapulted from their first space station to interstellar travel in less than a century. "What's their estimated time of arrival?" Voss asked. 4 hours, sir," Lieutenant Adams replied, her fingers dancing over the tactical display. "Our defense grid is at maximum capacity, but we're outnumbered 3-1. Voss had been briefed on the attackers. The Draz Imperium, an ancient spacefaring civilization with technology centuries beyond Earth's. Their massive ships were plated, with quantum-resistant armor that could withstand direct hits from Earth's most powerful weapons. "What about the evacuation?" Voss turned to Captain Lewis. 20% complete, Admiral. We need at least 10 more hours for a full evacuation of the colony." Voss's jaw tightened. New Montana, humanity's first extrasolar colony, housed over 3 million civilians. The math was brutal. They could save, at best, 500,000 people before the Draz arrived. "Why are they doing this?" Reed asked. "We've done nothing to provoke them." The question hung in the air. The Draz had ignored all diplomatic overtures since humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage. Their only message, sent 3 days ago, had been simple: "Withdraw from this sector or be eliminated." "Send a message to Earth Command," Voss ordered. "Request immediate reinforcements." "Sir," Adams interrupted, "even at maximum speed, the nearest reinforcements are 2 days out." Voss stared at the tactical display, weighing his limited options. Conventional wisdom said to retreat, preserve their forces, and return with overwhelming firepower. But that would mean abandoning millions to certain death. "Commander Johnson," Voss called to his tactical officer, "I want options." Johnson, a tall man with weathered features, stepped forward. "Admiral, we've been analyzing their formation. Their ships appear to be using a coordinated shield grid. If we could disrupt their synchronization pattern—" "We'd need to get deep within their formation," Adams objected. "It would be suicide." "Not necessarily," Johnson countered. "Our new stealth frigates haven't been battle-tested, but theoretically, they could slip close enough to deploy EMP weapons." Voss considered this. "And if we disrupt their shield grid?" "Then our main fleet could target their command vessels," Johnson replied. "Without coordination, their technological advantage diminishes significantly." Voss nodded slowly, a plan forming. Humanity might be outgunned, but throughout their history, they had frequently triumphed against superior forces through creativity and unexpected tactics. "Send this message to all ships," Voss ordered. "Operation Trojan Horse is go. All stealth. Vessels prepare for immediate deployment." As the crew scrambled to implement his orders, Voss gazed at the holographic representation of the approaching enemy. The Draz Imperium was about to learn a valuable lesson, one that countless Earth species had learned before them. Technological superiority doesn't guarantee victory against human ingenuity, especially when humans are fighting for survival. The Draz High Command vessel, unyielding dominion, floated at the center of the approaching armada, its enormous hull gleaming with an iridescent blue-black finish that absorbed rather than reflected light. Inside, Fleet Commander Morvax observed the tactical display with cold satisfaction. "The humans have deployed their defense grid," reported his second-in-command Tavik. "Primitive technology, but arranged with surprising efficiency." Morvax dismissed the observation with a wave of his upper limb. "Efficiency is irrelevant against superior force. Their weapons cannot penetrate our quantum shields." The Draz had ruled their section of the galaxy for over 10,000 years. They had watched countless civilizations rise and fall, some through natural extinction, others through careful Draz intervention. But never had they encountered a species that expanded as rapidly as humans. "Signal from the human colony," announced the communications officer. "They're requesting parley." "Denied," Morvax replied without hesitation. "We've studied their history. Humans are deceptive and unpredictable. Every species that has underestimated them has paid a heavy price." This was the truth behind the Draz's aggression. Their extensive archaeological research had uncovered a disturbing pattern across the galaxy. Wherever ancient civilizations had encountered humans, extinction followed. Not for the humans, but for those who opposed them. "Commander," Tavik said suddenly, "our long-range sensors are detecting unusual movement patterns from the human fleet." Morvax studied the display. The main human fleet appeared to be positioning for a defensive stance around the colony, but several smaller signatures were moving in unexpected patterns. "Analysis?" he demanded. "They appear to be deploying something," Tavik replied. "Small vessels, possibly fighters, but their energy signatures are minimal." Morvax felt the first stirrings of unease. The Draz military doctrine was based on overwhelming power and calculated predictability. Humans, according to their intelligence reports, were anything but predictable. "Maintain our approach," Morvax ordered. "Enhance forward shields. If they're deploying fighters, they'll be destroyed before they can approach our line." 3 hours later, the Draz fleet entered the outer defense perimeter of the human colony. As expected, the colony's automated defense systems activated, firing salvos of high-energy plasma toward the approaching ships. The shots dissipated harmlessly against the Draz shields. "Human main fleet is holding position," reported Tavik. "Their smaller vessels have disappeared from our sensors." Morvax frowned. "Disappeared? Explain." "They appear to be employing some form of stealth technology," Tavik admitted. "Our sensors can't locate them." This was unexpected. The intelligence briefing had not mentioned advanced stealth capabilities. But it was no matter. Stealth or not, no human weapon could penetrate their defenses. "Commence the attack," Morvax ordered. "Target their defensive installations first, then their fleet." The Draz armada surged forward, weapon systems charging. Victory was assured. It was simply a matter of time. What Morvax couldn't know was that 12 human stealth frigates had already penetrated the Draz formation, positioning themselves strategically throughout the enemy fleet. And aboard the lead frigate, Lieutenant Commander Dale Thomas was about to execute the riskiest military maneuver in human history. "All units in position," Thomas confirmed over the secure channel. EMP weapons primed and synchronized. From the command ship, Admiral Voss gave the order that would change the course of the battle. "Execute Operation Trojan Horse." The EMPs detonated simultaneously from 12 different points within the Draz formation. The weapons were unlike anything the Draz had encountered, designed not to destroy, but to disrupt the precise quantum synchronization of their shield network. On the bridge of the unyielding Dominion, chaos erupted as systems flickered and failed. The holographic tactical display dissolved into static before emergency power restored a partial image. "Shield coordination compromised," Tavik shouted. 70% of the fleet reporting synchronization failure." Morvax's composure shattered, as he realized the humans had identified and exploited the one weakness in the Draz defense system: its reliance on perfect coordination. "Impossible," he hissed. "How did they get past our sensor grid?" The answer came in the form of a massive volley of missiles from the human fleet, which had abruptly abandoned its defensive posture and launched a full offensive. Without their coordinated shields, the Draz ships were vulnerable. One by one, explosions blossomed across the armada. "All ships, regroup and establish individual shields," Morvax ordered. "Target those human vessels inside our formation." But the stealth frigates were already withdrawing, their mission accomplished. The Draz fleet's perfect formation had devolved into disarray as each ship fought to establish individual shields, a far less effective defense than their synchronized network. Admiral Voss watched from the bridge of the TFS Invictus as the tide of battle shifted dramatically. "Focus fire on their command ships," he ordered. "Don't let them re-establish coordination." The human fleet executed with precision, concentrating devastating firepower on the largest Draz vessels. 3 exploded in rapid succession, their advanced armor useless without the protection of their quantum shields. Aboard the unyielding Dominion, Morvax made a decision that would haunt him forever. "Initiate emergency jump. We must preserve the fleet." "But Commander," Tavik protested, "our forces are scattered. A coordinated jump is impossible. Then each ship must jump independently, Morvax insisted. We cannot win this battle. The retreat was disorganized and costly. Several Draz ships, attempting to jump with damaged drive systems, were torn apart by the spatial distortions. Others managed to escape, but without any coordinated destination. As the remnants of the Draz armada fled, a stunned silence fell over the bridge of the Invictus. Did we just win? Captain Lewis asked incredulously. Voss nodded slowly. We did. But this isn't over. He was right. The Draz Imperium spanned hundreds of worlds. This defeat would not go unanswered. Back on Earth, the news of the victory spread rapidly. For the first time in human history, an alien aggressor had been repelled. The battle became known as the Miracle at New Montana, a testament to human ingenuity against superior technology. But in the highest levels of Earth government, the implications were sobering. The classified intelligence that had prompted the Draz attack was finally revealed to military leadership. The disturbing pattern of extinct civilizations, all apparently eliminated after contact with humanity. It's nonsensical, General Rivera argued during the emergency council meeting. How could ancient humans have caused these extinctions when we've only just developed interstellar travel? Admiral Voss, recalled to Earth for the meeting, had a different question. What if we're not the first human civilization to reach the stars? The possibility hung in the air that perhaps humanity had risen before, expanded into the galaxy, and somehow fallen, leaving only these grim tombstones as their legacy. Whether this is true or not, the Secretary General finally said, the Draz believe it, and they've decided to eliminate us before history repeats itself. Voss nodded grimly. Then we need to prepare for war. 6 months after the Battle of New Montana, humanity had transformed. The threat of extinction had accomplished what centuries of internal conflicts could not. True global unity. Nations pooled resources, set aside differences, and focused entirely on survival. Dr. Anna Preston stood before the newly formed Galactic Defense Council, her findings displayed on the massive screen behind her. As Earth's leading xenoarchaeologist, she had been tasked with investigating the human tombstone phenomenon. We've confirmed the existence of at least 17 extinct civilizations with markers bearing the inscription human, she reported. Carbon dating and material analysis suggest these extinctions occurred between 20,000 and 100,000 years ago. General Rivera leaned forward. And you're certain these inscriptions actually refer to us? Could this be a translation error? The inscriptions use different languages and symbols, Preston explained. But our linguistic AIs are unanimous. They all point to the same meaning, human. And more disturbingly, we've found what appear to be depictions of Earth humans in their ruins. Admiral Voss, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. What exactly are you suggesting, Doctor? Preston took a deep breath. I believe we're looking at evidence of a prior human interstellar civilization. One that predates our recorded history. The room erupted in murmurs. The implications were staggering. If humans had advanced technology tens of thousands of years ago, Rivera said, where's the evidence on Earth? That's the fascinating part, Preston replied. We've discovered anomalous radiation patterns at several prehistoric sites that match signatures found at these alien ruins. Something catastrophic happened, both to ancient human civilization and to these alien species. Voss's expression darkened. The Draz believe we're responsible for these extinctions. Yes, Preston confirmed. But our research suggests a different narrative. We don't think humans were the destroyers. We think they were trying to prevent destruction. She changed the display to show ancient cave paintings discovered in various Earth locations, alongside similar imagery from alien ruins. The similarities were undeniable, depicting humanoid figures standing against a dark, amorphous threat. We believe humans of that era were fighting something, Preston continued, something that consumed civilizations. The inscriptions aren't accusations. They're acknowledgments. Humans were the last line of defense. The revelation changed everything. If Preston's theory was correct, humanity wasn't facing the Draz alone. They were facing the return of an ancient enemy that had nearly wiped them out once before. Have you found any information about this enemy? The Secretary General asked. Preston hesitated. only fragments. The ancient texts refer to them as the void or the hunger. They're described as consuming light, energy, and eventually, consciousness itself. The room fell silent as the implications settled in. The Draz weren't just attacking out of fear of human aggression. They were unwittingly serving as pawns in a much older conflict. "What's our next step?" Voss finally asked. "We need to make the Draz understand," Preston replied. "They have archives dating back thousands of years. If anyone has more information about this ancient threat, it's them." The Secretary General nodded grimly. "So, now we need to convince the people trying to exterminate us that we're actually ancient allies against a common enemy," he laughed humorlessly. "No pressure." As the council meeting adjourned, Voss approached Preston privately. "Doctor, you've left something out. I can see it in your eyes." Preston looked around to ensure they weren't overheard. "There's one more thing. The radiation patterns we found. They're increasing in frequency. Whatever this ancient enemy is, I think it's returning." The Draz Imperium's capital world, Morvaxis Prime, was in turmoil. The defeat at New Montana had shattered their belief in technological superiority, and rumors of a larger human fleet massing at the edge of Draz territory had sparked panic. In Sjotia, the Imperial Archives, Chief Historian Zelvin pored over ancient texts, searching desperately for precedent. The High Council had demanded answers. How had the supposedly primitive humans defeated their advanced fleet? "Historian," a voice called from the entrance. "You have a visitor." Zelvin looked up to see Fleet Commander Morvax, his once proud posture now diminished by defeat. "Commander," Zelvin acknowledged, "I didn't expect your presence in the archives." "Necessity drives us to unexpected places," Morvax replied grimly. "The High Council questions my leadership. They demand I find a way to ensure total victory against the humans." Zelvin gestured to the scattered texts around him. "I've been researching the human threat. There are inconsistencies in our historical accounts." "Explain," Morvax demanded. "Our earliest records of human encounters date back nearly 100,000 cycles," Zelvin began. "They describe humans as defenders, not aggressors. Yet our modern intelligence portrays them as an existential threat." Morvax's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting our entire military doctrine is based on false information?" "I'm suggesting," Zelvin said carefully, "that we may not have the complete picture. Look at this." He activated a holographic display showing an ancient Draz cave painting. It depicted bipedal figures, unmistakably human, standing alongside early Draz against a darkness that seemed to consume the stars themselves. "This predates our written history," Zelvin explained. "It suggests humans and Draz once fought together against a common enemy." Morvax studied the image with growing unease. "What enemy?" "The ancient texts call it the void between," Zelvin replied. "A force that consumed entire civilizations, leaving nothing but empty worlds." Their discussion was interrupted by a sudden alert. The holographic display shifted to show a fleet of ships entering the Draz system. Human ships, but not configured for battle. Instead, they were broadcasting a continuous message on all frequencies. "They're requesting parley," reported a communications officer who had rushed into the archives. "They claim to have critical information about our shared history." Morvax's first instinct was to order an attack, but something held him back. Perhaps the ancient image still glowing on the display. "What do they offer as guarantee of safe conduct?" he asked. "They've brought only lightly armed diplomatic vessels," the officer replied. "And they're transmitting archaeological data. Data that matches our own ancient records." For the first time in his long career, Morvax found himself paralyzed by indecision. Draz doctrine demanded the elimination of the human threat. Yet here was evidence challenging the very foundation of that doctrine. "Establish a communication channel," he finally ordered. "But keep our fleet at battle readiness." The holographic display shifted again, now showing a human female in what appeared to be civilian attire. "I am Dr. Anna Preston of Earth," she began. "I come with evidence that humans and Draz were once allies against an enemy that threatened all life in the galaxy." Morvax studied her carefully. "You fought and defeated our fleet, yet now you speak of alliance?" "We defended ourselves," Preston replied evenly. But we've since discovered that the true threat isn't the Draz Imperium. It's something far older and more dangerous, something returning. She transmitted images of the human archaeological findings, the tombstones, the ancient depictions, the radiation patterns, alongside the Draz records Zelvin had been studying. The evidence is undeniable, Preston continued. Whatever caused, these extinctions affected both our civilizations. Humans didn't destroy these species. We fought alongside them, including your ancestors. And we're all that stood between this void and total galactic extinction. Morvax turned to Zelvin, whose eyes had widened in recognition. The historical consistency is remarkable, the historian admitted. But if this is true, why don't we remember? Why did we come to fear humans? Preston's expression grew solemn. Because something altered your historical records. We've detected subtle inconsistencies in your archives, manipulations so ancient they've been accepted as fact for millennia. The implication was clear. Something had deliberately turned potential allies against each other, ensuring they would be divided when the real threat returned. 3 months after the historic meeting between Dr. Preston and the Draz leadership, an unprecedented summit convened on neutral territory. The ancient space station Nexus, believed to predate both human and Draz civilizations. Representatives from 17 species gathered in the cavernous central chamber, their differences momentarily set aside in the face of mounting evidence. Admiral Voss and Fleet Commander Morvax stood side by side on the raised platform, an unlikely alliance that symbolized the dramatic shift in galactic politics. The radiation signatures we've been tracking have intensified, Dr. Preston reported to the assembled delegates. They're concentrated in the Cygnus Void, a region of space where stars have been mysteriously dimming for the past decade. The holographic display at the center of the chamber showed the affected region, a growing darkness that seemed to consume light itself. Our combined archaeological research has confirmed what we suspected, added Zelvin, now serving as the Draz scientific liaison. This entity, this void between, appears to hibernate for tens of thousands of years before awakening to feed on energy and consciousness. A representative from the Telthar Communion, a species of energy-sensitive beings, rose to speak. We have sensed this absence in our meditations. It is like a hole in the fabric of reality itself. The question remains, Voss said, addressing the assembly. How did our ancestors fight this thing, and why did they fail? The answer came from an unexpected source, a small, unassuming delegate from the Archivist Collective, a species dedicated to preserving knowledge. We may have found something, the archivist announced. Our deepest archives contain fragments of a technology called the luminous barrier. References suggest it was developed jointly by humans and several other species, including the ancient Draz. What does this barrier do? Morvax asked. It apparently creates a field that the void cannot penetrate, the archivist explained. The records indicate it was partially successful. It didn't destroy the void, but it forced it into dormancy and prevented it from consuming more civilizations. Where is this technology now? Preston asked. Scattered, the archivist replied. The knowledge was deliberately fragmented and hidden across dozens of worlds to prevent it from being destroyed in a single attack. Our archives contain only the theoretical principles. Voss and Morvax exchanged glances. The implications were clear. Someone or something had ensured that no single civilization could reconstruct the luminous barrier alone. So we need to find these fragments, Voss concluded. And we need to do it quickly. The alliance that formed in the following days was unprecedented in galactic history. Species that had been enemies for millennia now shared resources, knowledge, and technology. Research vessels were dispatched to ancient ruins across the galaxy, seeking the fragments of knowledge that might save them all. On Earth, the Galactic Defense Council established a new division, the Luminous Barrier Project, dedicated to reconstructing the ancient technology. Similar efforts emerged across Draz territory and among the other allied species. But as the research progressed, disturbing incidents began to occur. Research vessels disappeared without explanation. Key scientists reported strange dreams and mounting paranoia before suddenly abandoning their work, or in some cases, attempting to destroy it. It knows, Preston confided to Voss after another researcher had been found catatonic in their laboratory. Whatever this thing is, It's aware of our efforts and it's fighting back. Voss nodded grimly. Then it's intelligent. And that makes it even more dangerous. The breakthrough came 6 weeks later, when a joint human-Draz expedition discovered a hidden vault beneath the surface of a supposedly uninhabited world. Inside was a complete schematic for a critical component of the luminous barrier, a quantum resonator that could generate a field impenetrable to the void's influence. As the expedition transmitted their findings, their communications abruptly ceased. Rescue ships arrived to find the planet's surface scoured clean, as if something had simply erased all matter from existence. But the transmission had gone through. Humanity and its new allies now had the means to fight back against the approaching darkness. "We've lost good people," Voss told the assembled fleet commanders. "But their sacrifice will not be in vain. We now know how to build the luminous barrier." The question remained. Could they complete it before the void fully awakened? The shipyards of Earth and the Draz homeworld worked at unprecedented capacity, constructing the massive generators that would power the luminous barrier. 17 fleets from across the galaxy converged on the edge of the Cygnus void, where the darkness continued to spread. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the Invictus, now retrofitted with the quantum resonator technology. Around him, ships from once enemy civilizations formed a protective perimeter around the central installation, a massive space station that would coordinate the barrier field. "Status report," Voss ordered. "Generator network at 78%, reported Captain Lewis. "Estimated time to full activation, 3 hours. "The void's expansion has accelerated," added Science Officer Reed. "Current models suggest it will reach our position in less than 4 hours. It would be close, too close. But there was no more time to prepare. A transmission came through from the Draz command vessel. "Admiral," Morvac said, his expression grim, "our sensors are detecting unusual activity within the void. Energy patterns unlike anything we've recorded." "It's changing," Voss realized. "Adapting." Dr. Preston, who had insisted on joining the mission despite the danger, studied the readings. "It's not just adapting, it's evolving. The patterns suggest it's developing a response specifically to counter the barrier technology." This was the moment of truth. Their ancestors had faced this enemy and managed only to force it into dormancy. Now it was awake, aware, and prepared. "We need to activate the barrier now," Voss decided. "Even at partial power, it might slow the void's advance." "But the network isn't stable," Preston objected. "The field could collapse." "If we wait, we might lose everything," Voss countered. "Captain, signal all ships. Commence barrier activation." Throughout the fleet, crews scrambled to initiate the ancient technology. The quantum resonators hummed to life, generating a field of luminous energy that spread between the ships in a vast interconnected web. For a moment, it seemed to work. The advancing darkness slowed, then halted at the edge of the barrier field. But then something unexpected happened. The darkness began to concentrate, forming a shape, almost like a massive hand pressing against the barrier. "It's testing for weaknesses," Morvac observed, his voice tight with tension. "The field is holding," Lewis reported. "But power consumption is exceeding projections. We can't maintain this indefinitely." Voss watched as the darkness probed the barrier, seeking entry. This was no mindless force. It was intelligent, patient, and terrifyingly determined. "It's been here before," Preston said quietly. "It recognizes the barrier. It's looking for the same weakness it exploited last time." Suddenly alarms blared across the command deck. "Breach detected in Sector 7!" Lewis shouted. "The field is failing!" On the tactical display, a portion of the barrier flickered and faded. The darkness immediately surged toward the gap. "Divert all available power to Sector 7, Voss ordered. Ships from across the Alliance moved to reinforce the weakening section, their generators straining to maintain the field. But the void had found its advantage and pressed it mercilessly. "We're losing it," Preston said, her voice hollow. Just like before. Voss refused to accept defeat. "There must be something we can do. Something our ancestors couldn't." A communication came through from the archivist vessel. "We've completed our analysis of the ancient records," the archivist reported. "We believe we understand why the original barrier failed." "Tell us," Voss demanded. The void doesn't consume matter or energy directly, the archivist explained. It consumes the boundary between them, the defining line that separates one thing from another. That's why it can pass through solid matter, why it leaves no trace. How does that help us? Morvax asked. The original barrier tried to create a boundary the void couldn't cross, the archivist continued. But that's precisely what it feeds on. What if, instead, we removed the boundary altogether? Preston's eyes widened in understanding. Create a space where there is no distinction between matter and energy. A state the void can't consume because there's no boundary to feed on. Precisely, the archivist confirmed. But it would require reconfiguring the entire network, and someone would need to remain within the void's path to complete the reconfiguration. A heavy silence fell over the command deck. Whoever took on this mission would almost certainly not return. Voss straightened his uniform. I'll do it. No, Preston objected. You're needed to coordinate the fleet. I understand the technology better than anyone. It should be me. Before Voss could respond, a new voice joined the conversation. Neither of you will go, Fleet Commander Morvax said firmly. My ship is already closest to the breach point. We will execute this mission. The decision was made. While the rest of the fleet maintained the faltering barrier, Morvax's vessel deliberately entered the gap, carrying the reconfigured resonator directly toward the heart of the void. Hours later, when the modified barrier finally activated, it didn't repel the darkness. It embraced it, creating a space where the void could no longer feed, could no longer maintain its coherence. The darkness began to fragment, its consciousness scattering across dimensions. In the aftermath, as Allied ships began the long journey home, Dr. Preston stood before the monument they had created at the battle site. A simple marker bearing the names of all who had fallen from every species that had joined the fight. And at the center, inscribed in the ancient symbols found on tombstones across the galaxy, was a single word: human. But this time, it wasn't a marker of extinction. It was a testament to survival, to unity, and to the truth that had finally been uncovered. That in the face of oblivion, all sentient beings stood as one. As she placed her hand on the monument, Preston understood at last why every tombstone in the galaxy's graveyard bore the same inscription. It wasn't because humans had caused those extinctions. It was because humans had been there at the end, fighting alongside those civilizations against the darkness. And this time, together, they had won.